The last 3 days has been great for anybody working in Telka because, it's amazing. Everything is smooth, everything is fun. You have all sorts of people walking around with big giant grins on their faces. I'm one of the happiest people here because for the last 3 days I've had so much time to hang out with some of the best artists in the country. It's been a great educational process, and I'm really, really thrilled that there is this session so that the rest of the audience also gets to share in this educational process with me. Some of you are, probably way ahead of the game, but some of you are probably in the same stage that I am in. So the idea that we have today is that with the internet, we know a little bit about artists. We know some key phrase, we know where they've come from, perhaps we know a little bit about which college they went to, but most of us are still removed from the conceptual frameworks that have taken decades for each artist to build. So this is a great opportunity for us to share with the artists their conceptual frameworks, and perhaps the next time we see their art, we will enter a journey with them. In fact, many of the conversations today, I think, will be about personal journeys. I'd like to begin with Manu Parekh ji, one of our great artists who's evolved a very, very special idiom to talk about the Indian landscape. And yesterday when we were talking, he said he has painted Banaras over and over again for many, many, many decades. And yesterday when we were talking about this, he said, Nisha, Banaras sirf ek bahana hai. It's just an excuse. So I was very intrigued by this. So why is Banaras just an excuse?
बनारस एक बहाना है जो मैंने बताया, उसके पीछे काफ़ी मेरे अनुभव की जो बातें हैं वो मुझे पहले बतानी है। पहले तो मैं जे से अपना डिप्लोमा किया है और मुझे काफ़ी हमारे एजुकेशन सिस्टम से वहीं प्रॉब्लम होना शुरू हो गया था। अहमदाबाद के एक मिडिल क्लास से आया हुआ लड़के को आप माइकल एंजेलो का स्टैचू ड्रॉ करने के लिए बोलोगे तो समझ में नहीं आता, कुछ कनेक्शन नहीं हो रहा था मुझे। तो वहाँ से ये क्वेश्चन करने की और कुछ एजुकेशन सिस्टम में ही प्रॉब्लम होना शुरू हुआ, कुछ कहीं एक जगह कनेक्ट नहीं कर पा रहा था। हालांकि एजुकेशन ख़त्म होने के बाद जो हिंदुस्तान में हर आर्टिस्ट का हालत होता है, आइदर उनको स्कॉलरशिप मिल जाती है तो लंदन पेरिस चले जाते, और जिनको नहीं मिलती वो फिर कोई जॉब ढूंढते हैं। तो आई वॉज रियली लकी कि मुझे जॉब मिला, और ऑल इंडिया हैंडलूम बोर्ड में अंडर पुपुल जयकर आई वर्क फॉर 25 years, एंड दैट वॉज बिगेस्ट मन एजुकेशन फॉर मी। जो अनुभव हुए हैं मुझे, उसे पूरा हिंदुस्तान देखने मिला। नहीं तो जनरली इंडिया में एक कनेक्शन है कि दिल्ली, बॉम्बे, कलकत्ता और मद्रास और सीधा आप लंदन, न्यूयॉर्क, पेरिस। उसके बदले मेरे केस में बिल्कुल उल्टा हुआ कि हिंदुस्तान के गाँव में काम करने का मौका मिला।
And you worked with a lot of crafts, including weavers and right.
तो सबसे बड़ा एक अनुभव क्राफ्ट से जो हुआ, जो रिस्पेक्ट फॉर ए क्राफ्ट्समैनशिप, रिस्पेक्ट फॉर रेपुटेशन, दैट वाज द बिगेस्ट लेसन। और गांव में जिस तरह के जितनी टैलेंट है, और ख़ास करके महिलाओं का जो मुझे अनुभव हुआ है, कितनी कमाल की उनकी एक एनर्जी होती है, उसको लेकर घंटों तक मैं बातें कर सकता। मैं एक एग्जांपल देता हूँ मधुबनी की गंगा देवी का, कि जो औरत को बच्चा नहीं होने से हस्बैंड ने घर से निकाल दिया है, वो बाद में पेंटिंग करके इतनी हाइट पे गई, नॉट ओनली प्रसिद्धि पर काम की क्वालिटी भी इतनी कमाल की थी कि पेंटिंग से ही जो कुछ भी उसको सर्वाइवल और जो रिस्पेक्ट वगैरह सब कुछ उन्होंने वापस दिया। मुझे याद है एक दिन मधुबनी से रशीदपुर हम लोग साइकिल रिक्शा में दोनों जा रहे थे, हम बातें कर रहे थे। वो पूरा रास्ता आज गंगा देवी मार्ग के नाम से पहचाना जाता है। तो इस तरह की जो स्ट्रगल है और सर्वाइवल में अपने एक रिस्पेक्ट को आगे करके, मैंने एक दिन गंगा देवी को पूछा कि आपके पति से सामने ही रहते थे? तो बोले नहीं, एक कुआं था उनका। तो वो जब आते, मैंने अभी तक 16 साल से उनके पैर देखे, मुंह नहीं देखा। इस तरह की एक जो डिग्निटी, तो ये सब देखने मिला, सीखने मिला कि किस तरह का फेथ है अपने आप में। इसी तरह से मधुबनी की जब बातें आती है कि इस तरह के गांव की औरतों की बातें आती है, तो मैं हमेशा मजाक में बोलता था कि मेरे घर में भी एक है, क्योंकि मेरी और माधवी की बड़ी पुरानी शादी थी, वो गांव से थी। जब माधवी ने भी 40 साल पहले मेरे ख्याल से हमारी ये पहली बच्ची की प्रेगनेंसी के टाइम उसने मुझे बताया कि मुझे पेंटिंग सीखना है, और शुरुआत में मैंने कुछ उसको बताया। बाद में बरसों के बाद नेशनल अवार्ड उसको पहले मिला, बाद में मुझे मिला है। तो ये जो एक कमाल का जो एक फेथ है, और कहीं एक जगह काम से जुड़ा हुआ, क्राफ्ट से जुड़ा हुआ, वो उनको कहाँ से कहाँ ले जाता है। तो मुझे जो एजुकेशन में जेजे में मिला, उससे भी ज़्यादा इस तरह के अनुभवों से मिला। उसके बाद हम लोग कलकत्ता 10 साल रहे, तो वहाँ भी जिस तरह का एक कला को लेके जिस तरह का अनुभव है, और जिस तरह के हर कॉमन मैन जिस तरह से वहाँ स्ट्रगल करते देखा, मैंने इट वॉज अ सी ऑफ ह्यूमन बीइंग्स। तो ये सब चीज़ों ने मुझे सबसे ज़्यादा क्लियर किया कि फेथ एक बहुत कमाल की चीज़ है फॉर सर्वाइवल, और हर आदमी की कहीं ना कहीं एक जुड़ी हुई बात होती है अपने पर्सनल फेथ से। और इस तरह से मैं मैंने मेरा पूरा काम रिजेक्ट करके 80s में मैं पहली बार बनारस गया, और बनारस के बाद जिस तरह के अनुभव है जीवन के बारे में देखने में मिला, फूलों की एक प्रेजेंस के बारे में देखा, और उसके बाद तो मुझे हम लोग इतना काफ़ी ट्रैवल कर चुके हैं। तो 2005 में एक ही साल में मुझे आई वॉज इन जेरूसलम, फिर कभी एक दिन वेटिकन सिटी में था, अजमेर गया था और बनारस गया था। तो सब जगह एक ही चीज़ दिखाई देती, एंड दैट इज़ अ फेथ। एक पर्सनल फेथ बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ है, और इसीलिए मैं बनारस इसलिए उसको बहाना बोलता हूँ।
That's great, sir. Thank you. In fact, later in the day, in our second session in the afternoon, our entire session is going to be a conversation about God and art and God. Do we need faith? Are artists godless people? All the funnest discussion I hope to have in this week. But moving on, Veer Munshi ji, so nice to have you here. I know I'm looking forward most to this conversation because you've told me about some very physical journeys that you've had to undertake to become the artist that you are, beginning with a journey that you didn't make out of choice, and exile from Kashmir, and how that influenced you, and then a journey that you made out of choice, one to Baroda. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. As Manubhai said, that art college doesn't teach you the content. They teach you academics, they teach you certain things which you practice or not practice. But it is a life journey finally, which teaches you many things. So to me, I have been engaged with art practice for the last 2 decades with violation and migration, what happened in Kashmir, since I have come from there 20 years ago and never went back. Thinking that it will be 2-4 months, but it is 20 years today, and does it look like that it will be 20 years more? And I realized there's never reverse migration. So you settle on something, not by choice, but that is, and to begin with, it's a personal catharsis. You start painting whatever happens there, day to day life you are concerned of, whether it's somebody dies, whether there's a violation, you keep painting on, and then it takes you to some kind of activism to understand many issues in the country as well, because if you belong to minority of some place, you understand the minority of other places as well, whether it's in Palestinian or Gujarat or anywhere. So those are things what you get out of it. But there are many things what you are taken, what you lose. But we take energy out of what we can do further. So that I feel artists has a great role in a society. We are not living in isolation. We eat same bread and wine. We are concerned of this corruption and price rise, similar where anybody else is. So we are concerned of the issues what is going around. I am happy many artists today are issue-based and making the works on these issues all over the country. Contemporary artists have gone ahead, though. But I would believe these issues should be addressed where it belongs to. I feel Kashmir in 2 decades, new generation had not seen cinema, have not seen. How do we expect culturally there will be go ahead or cope with the whole situation? So we need to engage those artists. We need the interlocutors, whosoever goes there, to meet the artists, see what writers are writing, or a folk artist in maybe any bands, and maybe listen to barber shops gossip, and you will get the more insight of Kashmir if you want to solve it. It can't be solved only politically, I think, culturally, because the culture is first hit and last to be heard.
I wanted to ask you about this particular project that you took up recently, which is of going back to Kashmir and shooting photographs of Pandit houses. Would you tell us how this particular project came about?
Okay. Because I have been using different mediums for different, because every medium has a possibility and limitation. So I wanted to shoot these abandoned houses in Kashmir, which is a medieval era in Srinagar. So I took the project and I went, and it was a photography. I went to paint it actually, but I thought I am putting my interpretation into the house, which I don't want to. So I took a medium of photograph, and this is the piece from that, a video I made out of it. And I think photograph speaks by itself, so you are not there, you are not putting yourself in it. So that's how it took me 4 years to do this, and it's a traveling show going on Bombay, Calcutta, and now may come to Delhi as well.
But you were saying that it was a process of catharsis for you, though your family really didn't want you to go back even to visit. Your parents didn't want you to even go back and visit.
I visited Kashmir back for 10 years, and parents were hesitant that I should go. But the things have started coming normal in some sense. But you go as a visitor, you see Kashmir in a different way now. And you do visit these houses because they belong to us, relatives, many people where we are born and brought up. So it builds a different kind of notion. It's very sad sometimes when you visit as a tourist to that place, but it is there. I need very little excuse all the time to visit there. I go every year. I go almost. Last week only I was there. So it provokes me to do many things. That's why I say artist has a role. But it's always sometimes artist is, I won't say underrated, maybe misunderstood, because I was walking through the corridor when I came. They were setting up this studio. And this girl was very nervous how to, artists are very sensitive, they should be put like this, easel should be, I said, why are you doing this? Artists are very comfortable, do wherever you put them. So I said, have you ever visited artist studio, how they work? I said, no, but I know how they work. I said, how? We have seen Rajesh Khanna in some film, how they paint. So it is somewhere misunderstood bit, but we need to, understand in a better way. There are many ways to paint, there are many ways to address. They have a role in society, I believe so.
You also said something about how when the boom happened, the art boom happened, there was this brief tug to, to create stuff which might not be the really deep political engagement that you've had. This very brief temptation to do other things, but that you returned to your...
It always happens when market booms and the economy dictates art, not art dictates art. It does happen. I remember when I started painting in Gadi Studios, there were many seniors, what are you doing? You are doing morbid images, you will die hungry and all. But it was Ibrahim Alkazi, we need many Alkazis like that, who would encourage. He had given me first show and made me believe what I was doing was right. And they was very discouraged on, they had a concern, an economic friend, you will die hungry and all that. So and economy, yes, it's a good thing to have economy because you can do many art. It was wonderful to the boom in the art in one side because you could do anything what you want to do, big scale. Scale has risen because of economy. But at the same time, price dictates art, which you are not always good about, you don't feel good about it. So the art should dictate arts.
Just a very off note, I on behalf of the audience, I have to ask this self-portrait on the pot. Would you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I call it self-contemplation. It was my self-portrait when I landed in Delhi in Bawalpur House. It was a guest house where we shared the dormitories. And it was often packed with artists. And I don't know what to do in urban city coming from Kashmir and in those. So I would often go to the toilet and sit and contemplate. When I showed it in Edinburgh, somebody said it's a self-constipation. I said, yes, it is true. 20 years, I still think same. So that's how it is. I brought this Gandhi also, the other one. Gandhi is a reference to, Gandhi has visited in 47 to Kashmir, saw a beam of light this is the peace he said this is the most peaceful area and this is the symbol for Kashmir. Then I was wondering now when I was painting the shrapnels, I thought Gandhi aimed as a welder who should come and weld these shrapnels now. So that was the connect.
Third of our artists here on the panel today, Naina Kanodia ji, based in Bombay, one of the proponents of the La Art Naif. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Naina ji? La Art Naif, yeah. So fantastic, fantastic style that the moment you see it, it puts a smile on your face. There's always a narrative in every painting. How did this very, very distinctive idiom develop? What framework do you see it within?
I need the mic. Hello. Yeah. So my inspiration was the changing face of India, how we have been invaded by Western civilization, but at the same time we retain our our traditions and our customs, and how we live under this dichotomy. That the unkempt maelstrom that has engulfed our ever-transforming society, where we have the generation clinging tenaciously to their roots and identities. And on the other, we have a growth of a new generation who is so dependent on all these progressive conveniences. In my paintings, a picture of the moment is built up in which whole histories and relationships are made visible. These paintings are moments of pleasure. Time moves, but in my paintings, time comes to a standstill. Do you want to ask anything?
Yes, I do actually. Naina ji, this is one of my favorites. This is Sunday evening, right? It's Sunday evening. What's going on here?
This painting, this once again depicts a change in our social values. Here, a decade back, one would never imagine a woman lying down with her legs propped up on her husband's legs. And though they are still wearing the clothes of the olden days, not even olden days, but a very typical Indian attire, the husband has taken it very casually that his wife is lying down with her legs on his feet, and the wife is just enjoying it. Even the paintings in the background, they are no longer paintings, pictures of our gods and goddesses or Raja Ravi Verma. They are paintings of a European artist called Matisse. And so this just shows that how they have progressed in their mindset. Though they still have a Ganeshi ka idol over there, they have their family portraits, but they are moving on with their social thinking.
It's great to know. I hope over the rest of the day you guys will get a chance to hang out with the artists in the corridor. This morning,
I should just mention that. Yeah. Yes, see now this painting which I have painted outside shows a very verdant jungle, and here we have a red sofa. Now this young gentleman sitting on the sofa picks up a few flowers which he has picked up from the forest. He offers this bouquet of flowers to his lady love, and he asks her, "Will you marry me?" The answer is, "I will SMS you." So this just shows how we are progressing with the times, but still retaining our roots and identities. Thank you.
In all the people who've been walking up and down, checking out the paintings, checking out the process, checking out the artists, I often see people stopping at Seema Kohliji's painting and saying, what's happening? And I see them sort of, leaning forward and sort of falling into the painting because each time you look, you feel like a new layer is emerging. And she often talks about her work in terms of an exploration of the mind. But yesterday, she told me this amusing story of how in this attempt to paint the exploration of the mind, her father once thought that she was going out of her mind. So perhaps you'd like to tell us a little more about that incident.
This is a long time back, and I really aspire to still have the same kind of a struggle which was then. I still continue to somehow create the same struggle all the time in my work, and each and every painting I create. Actually, that was, the time when I was trying to move on from paper to canvas. And I used to do a lot of layers on paper also, a lot of washes. And the washes were very symbolic of the various layers of our subconscious mind. That was what I have always tried to interrelate my work with my state of mind and what I think at the time of doing. And I have never found that particular thing, one thing which is not a continuation of a baggage of past. It goes down to so many layers which we do not see. And that's what I want to represent in my work. So there are a lot of layers. There's, silver leaf, then there's a deoxidization, then there are various washes with different mediums. I sort of mix different mediums, inks, gouache, acrylics, and then I sort of take an impression of maybe corrugated paper or cloth or bubble paper or whatever I get my hands on, maybe some kitchen stuff also. So I sort of mix in everything, and because that is what for me becomes the final state, sort of comes to be what is seen, and that's what I am. It is representational. Painting is just a representation. And why there are so many things happening all the time and there is no space which is empty, it is because that I want to show that space called mind, which would not be there if there is no thinking process. You see, thinking, mind is just that little space where this continuous thinking process takes place. One starts and the other ends and the other starts and it is so fast. It is so fast, and there's a complete repetition of thoughts. You go back and you say, oh God, I wasn't thinking about this, and I'm painting all the time. And while I'm painting, there are teacups. Instead of, that thing, smoke coming out of teacups, there may be flowers, and then from the flower, there's a tree is emerging, and from the tree, there is a woman who's sitting and taking out lotuses, and from that lotuses, maybe something else is emerging. So that continuous process, and that becomes my painting, and that is what I'm trying to say. That is it. I'm not afraid. I must say that I never went to an art school, and I'm really happy to have my strange journey with very different mediums, and I really try to constantly push my boundaries, push my limits, and try to see, okay, now this is the work I've created. What will it look if I sort of performed it? What will it look if I moved it on to a sculpture? What would it look maybe if I did it in a different medium? So it's constantly trying to push my own self, and that's what my work is all about.
Do you think you had an advantage in not going to art school?
Of course, I do think because there was a constant, I didn't even know whether in oil paints I need to put turpentine. There were times I was just trying to put, straight away the oil paint onto the canvas, and then I would say, oh God, this is not working. It's cracking up after a few days. What do I do? So there would be 15 canvases already in that process, which I would have done, So there was a complete, I always felt like that I was like a child trying to just
start from scratch.
Yeah, and I wanted to experiment in every medium, and that's what I continue to do.
Subodh Kelkarji is both a guest and a host. He's a homegrown Goa artist, a very unique entity because he started out as a doctor, ran a hospital, and then chucked it up. And after this major break, he also had another major break, which is that instead of exploring very conventional mediums, he does something that he calls land art. It's a very transient work which requires a whole lot of work but then disappears. So do you want to talk about these two big breaks, the break from medicine and this particular medium?
First of all, thank you, because earlier this session is supposed to happen outside in the corridor. Perhaps because all my colleagues are outstanding artists. And thank you for bringing it in and giving the status of thought to visual art. Well, I was a doctor. I ran a hospital for 6 years. It 25 years ago, I started a hospital in Kalangut. Initially, my patients were all from Goa, the fishermen, but suddenly things changed. And almost about 75–80% of my patients turned out to be British tourists, because there was suddenly a boom in tourism, and 75–80% of my patients were tourists. And all of them suffered from dysentery. And the idea of spending my lifetime treating dysentery was horrible. Well, that's not all. That's not all. I thought India has taken enough shit from the British and I didn't want to take any more. So, well, now talking about my land art, first of all, for those who are not aware of this land art movement, let me brief you about what this is about. I'm not a landscape architect. Many times, landscape architect and land art is mixed up with. Land art movement started somewhere in the 60s in America, and the first artist was Robert Smithson. And he created something which was called spiral jetty. This was a very novel concept because the art went out from the gallery, the space of a gallery, into the landscape. You know, there were a lot of landscape artists, and there were a lot of artists who engaged with landscape. But most artists, like Constable and everybody, they basically depicted the landscape in their paintings. Land art is not about depicting the landscape, but land art is about engaging with the landscape. Landscape becomes a canvas for your creation. As far as my land art is concerned, well, I don't have much time, so I will just talk about a few of my pieces. Usually, landscape artists took away the political in the service of the decorative. I do exactly the opposite. I have many, could you please go back on this first slide and keep it there? I take out, most landscape artists, as I said, they took out politics in the service of decorative. I infuse my art, I infuse landscape, I infuse decorative and picturesque with politics. There are many layers in my work. There are basically aesthetic layers, social, political, material. As far as this work is concerned, when you do land art, what is most important is you do you make interference in nature. But you have to be very careful that that is not a rape on nature. It has to have a symbiotic relationship. Let me just talk to you about this work of mine. I was walking on Wagator beach, and there was this little rock which was projecting into the sea. It was like a ramp for the waves to stage a catwalk during high tide. And there were already some puddles of water on this rock. And I have a very close affinity to, close relationship with nature, and with, especially with the ocean. Now, oceans of the world have no background. Life originated in the ocean. Actually, the history of human civilization is dissolved in the ocean. I decided to carve a very perfect bowl in this rock. This is about 2 meters diameter bowl cut into this rock, and during high tide, the ocean brings in the water. And that water has history of human civilization dissolved in it. This is boundless ocean. So I call my bowl the Earth Bowl, the bowl for world brotherhood. This is there in Wagator Beach. Well, the next slide, please. Yeah, this was a project I did in Dubai. I was asked to do something which connects with the relationship with Arabia and with India. Much before the oil boom, 2000 BC, we already had ships going between the two countries, Arabia and India. And I wanted to celebrate that. And I often use old boats as medium of my sculpture. These are boats from Goa. I buy old boats and use glass, use copper, mix it with them, and make sculptures out of it. There's a beautiful thing happening when you use old objects, especially old boats, as medium for sculpture. Here, you are making history. You are using history as a medium for sculpture. And so I carried these boats, old boats, to Dubai, and this sort of establishes this trade relationship which exists between Arabia and the Harappa Mohenjo-daro civilization. Next, please. Next slide, please. This is installation done not too far from here. There's a beach here which is called Goa Vella. This used to be a very important port in the, from 6th century to 14th century. It was called Goa Puri. And then the port is silted and the port is shifted to Old Goa.
Actually, I think our timekeepers are going to send us in a boat out into the ocean very soon. So
Okay, okay. So, well, this is called a moon in the tide, and I made a form of a moon with shells, and then the moon, which is the creator of the tide, was destroyed by the tide. Next slide, please.
thank you all. Thank you, sir. This was session 1. There's session 2. I mean, and in between you can check out everything from boats to reclining ladies to Pandit houses. Just hang out with these artists. It's a great privilege to have them hanging around with us. Spend as much time as you can, and please do come back for the afternoon session at 3:40, I think, where we talk about God and godless artists. Thank you all.